Hola y bienvenidos a este Openclass. Yo soy Marissa Álvarez, soy una profesora de UNIR del Máster de Teaching English as a Foreign Language. A la vez, también soy profesora de secundaria y de bachillerato en Madrid, España. Con lo cual, mi primer idioma es Spanglish. Durante este curso hablaremos un poco en castellano y también en inglés. Primero, vamos a sentar un poco las bases de qué es Differentiated Learning, entender un poco la teoría y luego ver 6 técnicas que podríamos aplicar en nuestras aulas para diferenciar la instrucción dentro de nuestras aulas. Y finalmente terminaremos con unas preguntas que tenéis en casa. Bueno, vamos a empezar. Differentiated Learning es por Carol Ann Tomlinson. Differentiated Learning es una forma de que podemos adaptar y modificar la enseñanza y aprendizaje de los alumnos para que corresponde a sus necesidades. Podemos hacer esto de varias maneras. Podemos hacerlo con el contenido, que serán los contenidos que tenemos que cumplir para el final del curso, para una modalidad o una unidad. También puede ser el proceso, que serán las actividades que los alumnos tienen que hacer para que muestren que entienden o han aprendido lo que están viendo en clase. Puede ser también adaptado en la forma del producto. Podemos darles opciones en los proyectos o los trabajos que hacen durante una unidad que reflejan su enseñanza su aprendizaje. Y finalmente puede ser también dentro del ambiente de su aula de aprendizaje. Hoy en concreto vamos a ver técnicas que se relacionan con el contenido, proceso y el producto. ¿Qué pensáis? ¿Lo veis factible? ¿Creéis que vamos a tardar mucho tiempo en diferenciar la instrucción para cada alumno? Pues no os preocupéis. Os voy a dar unas cositas que podéis utilizar dentro de vuestras aulas para que pueda ser un poquito más fácil. Primero vamos a hablar un poco del content, ¿vale? First of all, to differentiate instruction, the best thing that we can do for our student is to provide them with lots of different ways for them to see the content. If we think about this in terms of multiple intelligences, right, we've got our visual learners, we've got our auditory learners, and we also have our kinesthetic learners. Those are the kids that want to move around and dance. Well, there's lots of resources online that can help you adapt your materials so that you have all these sort of things within your classroom. So you're not just telling your students what they should be learning, but they're also seeing it, they're listening to it, and maybe even they're interacting with it. It can be as simple as cutting up a piece of paper and letting them move around and play with the words. But there are also other resources that are provided for us online that have already been created where we can adapt these materials for our students. So we're going to take a look at some leveled readings. Leveled readings can be found on various different websites. I've included a couple of resources here that we're going to take a look at today. And the leveled readings are basically articles that have been adjusted so that readers at different levels can engage with the same content. So we're going to take a look at how these resources can be useful and also helpful within our classrooms. The first one that I want to share with you is National Geographic. They've got an amazing amount of resources that we can use in our classrooms. So if you type in National Geographic Education, or you can go to nationalgeographic.org/education, you'll come to this search page. You can type in topics that you're interested in, or what I do normally is I look specifically for the articles. And once you click on articles, you can click on leveled articles and hit done. And then you hit your search button. Once your search button, your search has been complete, you're going to see that there's going to be all these resources that come up that are considered leveled reading. So for example, this is an encyclopedia entry, and it says here at the top that it's leveled, right? It also provides a little bit of a background as to what it is on, which is the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and it gives you the grades. Now, these grades normally correspond to the United States, right? But you can still use them within your classroom and with your English language learners. As you can see here, you've got lots of different types, but you can also search by grades and by content types, right? So we're going to take a look at one of these. Let's go to that top one up there, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, and we're going to click on it. And once we click on the resource, you're going to see that it includes, maybe images. It could include a PDF. Sometimes they include videos. Sometimes they have even interactive maps, which is absolutely wonderful. And then here you'll see that you can select the level at which the text is going to be geared towards, right? So this means that, for example, for those of you that are in secondary, which is where obviously I'm more specialized in, for my tercero de la ESO students, I use 9th grade, okay? But if maybe your students don't have quite as high a level, you can definitely click on 7th grade. The great thing about this website is you can click on the word, it provides a definition, it gives you the phonetics, which sometimes for the students might or might not be difficult, and it gives you a definition, and then it also gives you external resources. You can connect this also to your Google Classroom. As most of us are now online due to the current health pandemic, this is definitely a great way to work with our students. The nice thing is that you can offer them the variety of options, right? So being able to level our reading also provides us, for those students that are maybe more advanced, those that are at a mid-level, and those that are still trying to asentarse un poco las bases, ¿vale? Es decir, que podemos ampliar y podemos reducir, aunque al final van a tener el mismo contenido. También lo bueno de esta página web, siempre nos da como una página de vocabulario, ¿vale? Entonces, ellos pueden trabajar el vocabulario también en casa. Hay un montón. Y depende del nivel. Entonces, es decir, que a un nivel de cuarto de primaria no vas a tener el mismo vocabulario que a un segundo bachillerato que hemos elegido aquí, ¿vale? Esta es una de las páginas web que creo que es fundamental para reading. I think that reading is super important. These topics are related to other subjects the students are working with in class. You can create interdisciplinary learning, and you can link up with science teachers and history teachers to kind of mix that English and make it more applicable for them. Another website that I really like, and it's actually been created by the Smithsonian, is called Tween Tribune. And I'm going to share that with you guys right here. And here you'll see, this is a Smithsonian website, and at the top, you've got the different grade levels, and you also have articles in Spanish. Again, this is for native speakers, but I would definitely use this in my English language learning classes. You can pick the length of the text. It also comes with quizzes that you can have the students do, as well as critical thinking questions. There are also weekly lesson plans on this website, weekly videos, and a newsletter if you wanted to sign up for it. So let's click on one of these here. Why do we love junk food? So it's a great article. Here you've got the options of the length of the article. Again, we can link it to Google Classroom, which again, I think is vital nowadays. This one doesn't have the vocabulary section, but it does come with then videos, right? So you've got other things, right? As we talked about before, we want to link the content not just to visual learners, but to auditory learners as well, so that they can hear it from a different perspective. Here we've got the critical thinking question at the bottom, and then people that have participated kind of in the discussion board. The students could also then take a quiz that's related to the reading. So this is the 830, and here we can click on the longer one, right? And as we can see, the article, well, it should have, normally it does, I apologize for that, but oh no, it is, it's longer. It should be longer, right? So, and the cool thing is all of these come from the Smithsonian magazine. So there's a variety of topics here. You've got animals, you've got videos, you've got education, art, entertainment, food and health, national news, which is related to the United States, but still could be very relevant in your classrooms as well. And you've got world news. So you've got lots of different aspects, and you've got a teacher corner here that will provide you with kind of resources that you could integrate into your classroom. But what I really like is that this website offers teachers the ability to have the same reading with the students working on it on different levels. So another thing that you could consider doing with this sort of thing is sometimes I provide my students with a list of different articles. Maybe they're about the same topic, but different aspects, and you can have them read them, right? So you might have somebody read, for example, I've done one on graffiti, and the students will read an article about how much it costs to clean graffiti. Another one might be about how graffiti has brought more tourism to a certain part of town, right? So providing them those kind of different readings that are adapted to their level will get them more engaged, not only in the language, but in reading itself. And this is a great way to adapt content and to integrate our learners into a cultural aspect, as well as it could be also a subject aspect. If you link this with biology, with history, with Spanish language, you can do as well. So those are a couple of the websites that I wanted to show you specifically on the content aspect. Now, there's other websites that I've listed here as well called Readworks.org. It's got one of the largest libraries of nonfiction and fiction and literary articles, pardon me, in the United States that are offered as a resource for teachers. They include reading comprehension and vocabulary lessons as well. They also have formative assessment for you to integrate into your classroom if you wanted to test your students on the things that you were learning about, and some sort of teacher guidance. Importantly, I want to comment that this also has an English language learners section. So this website, readworks.org, provides articles for English language learners. News and Levels is a website that also takes information or articles that have been written and adapts them for the different levels. And so again, you'll see articles that are much shorter, and then you'll click on the longer one and it'll be much longer. So you're adapting the content, and you're maybe giving those students that need a little bit lower of a level, or not necessarily lower, but easier to work with, and also adapting it for those that maybe need a little bit more, right? And then Reading Vine also includes an English language learners section of articles. So there are the native speaker articles as well as the English learning articles. So it really depends on kind of the environment in your classroom. Sometimes I think that we just choose one article for our students and assume it's a one size fits all, when in reality it's not. And what we need to be able to do is help each student work on those different skills slowly so that they can all get to where they need to go. Language learning isn't as easy, right, for one as it might be for another. So if we can push those students to be doing those different kind of challenging readings, then we're going to help them in their language learning and not discourage them. Another aspect of differentiated instruction includes process, right? A lot of the times in the classroom, we say, write this or do this. Something that we can help our students with is by providing them sentence starters. At my school and in my classroom, for example, I have certain students that really need sentence starters. And for them, it's their way of it's their crutch, right? And I know when they're using those sentence starters because they're mine. I've provided them for them. Whereas I have other students that could literally write 3 or 4 paragraphs on one topic without ever having to take a look at this. So sometimes sentence starters could be kind of the beginning of writing, right? They just kind of need something to help them brainstorm or to kickstart an idea, or it could be used because they cannot write a paragraph and maybe they need those 5 different sentence starters so they can complete those. I've used this. This is an assignment that I used with my students last year online. My co-teacher and I came up with this, and the students had to write about their ideal partner. And so we provided them these sentence starters, and through these sentence starters, they were able to either adapt them or come up with their own version or use the exact ones that were on here. Now, for a lot of my students, they know exactly where their level's at. They know that if they should be doing more than using sentence starters, or if they should be creating their own paragraphs, right? And they know if it's totally acceptable for them to create sentence starters. And another technique that we've used in class, for example, are stoplights. So this is an example of an assignment that I've given to my students in the process of them learning about comparative and superlatives. And the idea here was that the students have to compare Scottish cities versus their French counterpart, right? The French and the Scottish have sister cities, and so we wanted them to create an infographic. Prior to creating the infographic, they had to do research, of course. So we explained to them what a sister city was. We provided them a website with information, and then we had them kind of pick and choose what sister cities they wanted to do. And after they had decided upon their sister cities, they had to do research on those 2 cities. And they were able to decide from the stoplight how they were going to develop their writing. The students were given an opportunity to choose between red light, yellow light, and green light. Well, in the red light, we've got write 5 comparative and or superlative sentences about the sister cities. So that means that the students could write 5 comparative, 3 comparative, 2 superlative, or just 5 superlative. It was up to them. This is the lowest level, right? And here, the idea would be that students that do the assignment and engage in the red light would only get the maximum point of a 5, right? Whereas in the yellow light, right, we're offering them the ability, this is kind of the mid-level, to write 5 comparative and or superlative sentences about the sister cities and include detailed information about each using connectors. That means because, as a result of, right? And this is kind of where the majority of the students would be. This sort of mark would then be a 7 or an 8, depending on their work. Now, could they get a 5 being in the yellow light? Absolutely. It just depends on what the students produce. And then finally, for those students that have a much higher level and that needed to kind of be pushed a bit further, we would ask them to participate in the green light, where they're writing 2 paragraphs, 5 sentences each, where they're comparing and contrasting the sister cities, right? And they would have to include examples, details, and facts to support their statements, right? So through their research, they would include, for example, New York is known as the city that never sleeps, okay? They would have to explain, obviously this has nothing to do with Scottish or British cities, but you understand what I mean. They would explain then what that meant, right? So it's giving our students an opportunity to figure out exactly where they're at. They know where they're at with English language learning, and pushing them to maybe do a little bit more or to do exactly what they feel comfortable with, right? So these are 2 ways that we can adapt our process to help our students during the learning phases, right? And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about the product, right? There's so much text on the screen. The idea isn't for you guys to read the text, but providing our students a long-term project or some sort of a portfolio that reflects their work is a great way to have learners to differentiate our learning. And one thing my co-teacher and I have done is when we would come up with projects for our students to do, we would provide them the task, right? So what they would have to do. this would be kind of the mandatory, this would be the outlines. You have to work in groups of 2 or 4 students. You can work in a group of 3. It cannot be more than 2 or pardon me, more than 4 or less than 2. They have to include a bibliography and they have to use credible sources. And then we provide them kind of an idea, an option. This is kind of like a menu. Imagine you go to a restaurant and you've got hamburgers and pasta and you've got pizza, right? We're letting them choose all of these. But then we're also saying, the very bottom here, we say any other creative idea you may have, just make sure to ask the teacher, right? This is kind of to get their gears in motion, thinking about all those cool things that they could do. And what we always do is we provide them with a list of topics. And the list of topics, right, as you can see here, the Black Death, the plague, diseases and medicine, we kind of then give a brief description of each. They may include a brief description. They may include questions for them to think about as they're researching, right? And so then the idea is that by providing the students a list of options and questions that they can think about while they're doing their research, they're able to then decide how to show their learning through their product, right? With this project, my co-teacher and I had students that did a radio talk show, and it was about arms and weaponry during the Elizabethan era. But then we also had other students who decided to create a magazine about the Black Death. We had a couple of other students also create a board game. So they decided not to focus on one topic, but each student picked a topic and they created kind of a trivia game. We also had students create like a scrapbook with like, detailed descriptions and drawings and lots of different things. So it was showing their learning, but each of them doing it in their form, right? And at the end, after they had finished creating their projects, then they had a presentation and they felt more comfortable presenting on the information that they had decided to learn about and in the way they decided to show their learning, right? So coming up and explaining a magazine is much easier because that's what they enjoyed doing. They like writing. Whereas for other students who wanted to do the radio show, after they had done the radio show, then we asked them why they had chosen it, right? And it was more about the process in making those decisions and in the learning than it was actually about making sure that they knew the content for an exam, right? So giving our students these opportunities is to demonstrate their learning through different aspects. They tend to shine more. They tend to be much more creative as well as a result of it. During quarantine last year, my co-teacher and I, as I mentioned before, you'd seen the Perfect Mate activity. Our students kind of created a little reflection portfolio, right, in Google Slides. And in there, they included their different work, right? So this was the Perfect Mate. As you can see, this is a very different type of text. There was no sentence starters here. And then we had them obviously create a Tinder profile, right? So something fun and engaging. And again, we didn't give them a minimum or a maximum. We just said they had to be complete sentences. So maybe for those lower learners, right, they only wrote one sentence. I'm looking for a queen, for example. Whereas this one kind of gave it a little more jazz and made it funny. And so they also included that it was a match between Mary and Francis. And then finally, we also had them include a meme, since that's what kids love nowadays, right? And this meme was kind of a summary of all the kind of learning that we had done through this lesson. So through these kind of simple, quick questions or quick activities that you can kind of check and see, have they learned or have they not learned? It also allows the students maybe at a lower level or at a higher level to be more or less creative, right? We're just we're checking in. What do we understand? What did we not understand? And then finally, something that we also include is fast finishers. So for our students, for this activity, our students were then asked if they had finished things and they had more time and they wanted to create, for example, 10 questions based off of a reading. And they were given, options of doing true or false. They also explained them, right? They did multiple choice questions and so on. And so this is a different way to gauge their learning. You could ask those lower-ended students to just do true and false, the mid-range to do more A, B, C, D, and for those higher-leveled students to integrate a little bit of everything, right? True, false, A, B, C, D, as well as short answer questions. And then the great part about this is you have them creating an exam for you. And you can take those questions either from a different class or from your actual class and integrate them into your actual test. And you've already got the answer key. So through differentiated instruction, we can adapt our teaching and also adapt our students' learning to make sure that they're understanding the contents that we're teaching them. It doesn't necessarily always have to be drilling, right? Our students can learn through a variety of facets, and we can adapt it through a variety of ways. We have talked today about how we can adapt it through content, right? Which is what we need our students to learn, our learning objective by the end of the year. We can adapt it through the process, which is kind of those activities that they're working on throughout each unit. And we can adapt it throughout the product, which are kind of those long-term projects, whether it's a portfolio or a project, right? And the last one that we can adapt it through that, as I mentioned earlier, that we weren't going to talk about today, is adapting it through the environment, kind of the classroom setting. That kind of is all contingent upon the space that we have. And not only that, but right now in times of COVID and learning online, I think that it's, maybe a little bit more null and void, right, at the moment. So we've also seen those different techniques that we can implement in the classroom. We looked at how maybe we can include leveled reading, how we can provide them sentence starters using a stoplight, and giving them a menu of activities that they can engage in. So thanks for being here with me. I'm going to take some questions now that I can answer. And give me 1 second. So Maria says, ¿nos puedes contar en qué consiste el método Differentiated Instruction de Diana Tomlinson? Sí. A ver, lo que es adaptando el contenido, el proceso, producto y ambiente en donde los alumnos están aprendiendo, ¿vale? Es decir, que estamos adaptando, no le vamos a dar solo una hoja del verbo to be, sino darles opciones cómo van a trabajar el contenido, por ejemplo, o darles opciones de cómo qué actividades van a hacer, o darles unas opciones de qué producto al final van a entregar, que puede ser un portfolio, que puedes ver su proceso de aprendizaje durante un curso, durante una unidad, ¿vale? Y con reflexiones suyas, ¿vale? Alicia, es muy interesante estos enlaces. ¿Puedes enseñarnos alguno más? Pues sinceramente, aquí no los tengo, pero si buscas Leveled Reading en Google, os va a salir cosas. Estos son los que yo suelo utilizar mucho. La mayoría puedes adaptarlos, tanto o ya están adaptados, pero si veis que es muy difícil para vosotros, bueno, para los alumnos, pues coge uno básico. Ese puede ser el nivel más alto y luego adaptarlo un poco más. Y incluyendo vocabulario también les ayudas. Esther, can you give us any website about childhood education? Because all the websites are about primary SO. the Readworks and the Reading Vine, as well as News and Levels and, and the Reading Vine, as well as the Smithsonian, all have primary work. And there's one called K5. Give me one moment and I will pull, let me see if I can find that. It's called K5reading, I believe, .org. I believe it's called K5reading.org. Oh, pardon me, K5 learning. All right, so that'll be more primary geared. All right, and you've got reading, you've also got phonics, sight words, vocabulary, and reading comprehension on there. All right. Another question here. Which is more important, grammar or speaking? From a personal perspective, I definitely think the emphasis on speaking is much more important. Because if you think about it, when our students get out into the real world and they need to go to the pharmacy, it doesn't matter if they use the right conjugation, as long as the pharmacist can understand them. And so I think working on speaking is definitely much more important than working on accuracy, right? So I definitely think that if anything, you should always work on fluency over accuracy. I think a lot of the times that there's too much focus on everything being perfect. It's, can you understand them? Are they getting their point across? Because if they travel to Japan, that's what's really going to be at stake, right? Luis asks, how to face the teaching in rural grouped schools with different levels in the same classroom. Any advice? I definitely think that, again, using different leveled reading and topics that interest them. I think providing the students an opportunity to share what they enjoy learning about is really important. And then from there, kind of grouping your assignments and your readings or whatever you're going to work on so that the students feel as though they're being heard. For example, if you're going to focus on the environment, right, don't just focus on maybe global warming or pollution, but allow them to explore any aspect about the environment. I think a lot of the times we close topics, and what we should be doing is allowing our students to expand and explore more topics, right? And the only way to really do that is by giving them an opportunity to voice their opinions. Hopefully that helps. So I really appreciate all of you guys being here today. It's been absolutely wonderful. Hopefully you've got a couple little tips and tricks now that you can use in your classrooms. I definitely recommend looking for more resources through differentiated learning or instruction. And also, don't be scared of using native speaker resources and adapting them for your classrooms. All right. And thanks for being here with me today. I'm Marissa Alvarez, and I am a professor of the Master of the Teaching English as a Foreign Language program here in UNIR. I teach curriculum and course design, and hopefully I'll be seeing you guys there at some point. Thank you.